Hey, changemakers. Thank you for tuning into the Hacking the Patriarchy podcast. I'm your fervent feminist host, Raven O'Neill, and I get the honors of sitting down weekly with diverse experts from all walks of life to explore ideas, opportunities, and strategies that we can all use to hack our way to better lives within patriarchal societies. If you're ready to hack patriarchal systems and structures, I invite you to join us and help move the needle. I'm excited to introduce you to today's guest, Melissa Glick. Melissa is a business and growth strategist who helps entrepreneurs and small businesses scale through smart systems and social selling. After building and selling a 7-figure tech company, Melissa founded Peak CEO to teach others how to break free from the daily operations and grow with confidence. Melissa specializes in organic lead generation, LinkedIn growth, and closing high-ticket deals without feeling salesy. Please bring your hands together and welcome Melissa to our conversation today. Welcome to the show today, Melissa. I am super excited to be having this conversation. We're going to dive into everyone's favorite topic outside of money, which is sales. I think a great way to kick this conversation off and hopefully get a little bit of your bio and backstory woven into it is we had talked offline, and I know that you kind of came up in sales in the boiler room atmosphere, that masculine sales mentality. And I just want to learn what that might have taught you about holding your own in that arena.
Yeah. Well, I am excited to get into it today with you, Raven. But first, I want to thank you for having me on your show. And I'm really excited to explore this conversation with you. And hopefully your audience loves what I have to say. So, yes, it's kind of crazy. I learned sales in a full-on boiler room bullpen of men that everyone was wearing suits. It was extremely competitive. I worked for a big company that had an amazing sales training program, but I was one of very few women. And at the time of my training, I think I was the only woman in my office who was doing what I was doing. And it was ultra competitive, hustle, bro culture before I even knew what that was. And that's all I knew. It was my first run in sales, and nobody believed in me. Not only was I underestimated, but a part of what we had to do as a newbie was we had to go through the sales training program. We had to do everything that they asked us to do, but we also had to have a mentor. We had to have somebody who was going to take us under their wing and show us the ropes, come with us on our meetings, do all the things that you need somebody to do to teach you how to do this job. And nobody wanted to be my mentor. Nobody. I asked everyone in my office, all men. Nobody was giving me the time of day. They didn't think that I could do it. They thought they would be wasting their time. And I proved them all wrong. In fact, one of the very first piece of business that I won on my own, I couldn't even get anybody to come on the meeting with me. I had to bring up our sales trainer on this meeting with me. It was a whale, and I landed the business. And so I didn't just hold my own, I held the leaderboard. And the environment taught me that if I believe in myself and if I speak for myself, even when I'm underestimated, I can still do the things that I want to do. But it also taught me what not to carry forward, which was mistaking this culture as the only way to be successful in sales. And the thing that really stood out for me and made me be different and made me land the whale and made me rise to the top of the leaderboard was this thing that I had, which was different, which was, I think, working for me, which was that I was a woman. And it was my ability to connect with people. And that's how I learned sales. And I didn't even know at the time that that's the piece that I had that even this sales training program never taught me.
Mm. I feel I feel like coming up in that atmosphere also benefits you in the fact that if you can survive that, you can probably survive any kind of sales situation.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I mean, I don't even know where I would be today if I didn't have that experience. I don't do anything like that today. I don't work in that world. I'm in a completely different industry. That was commercial real estate. But everything that I learned there has helped get me to where I am today. And I do it different. I do it my way. And I've figured out after, I mean, that was like 20 years ago. And I figured out how to use that stuff and make it my own and use it for myself. And now I teach it to other people.
I I don't know if you talk about this often. I would love to just do a little bit of a you said you realized how your approach was different in that process and why it won, and kind of the threading how you got to where you are today. And we're going to dive into your process and your services, but kind of how that starting point then traveled the line to where you are today.
Yeah. So, well, it's really interesting because I learned this. I learned this technique, and this was how I learned sales. And years later, I had my own business. I had a tech company, and the things that I learned about how to have a conversation with somebody, about how to talk about what I do, how to talk about what they need, and bridge that gap, it started to just become a natural flow of a conversation that I was very comfortable doing. And because I was comfortable doing it, that's the role that I naturally fell in my business, was doing that. But once we started to get big enough, I couldn't always be the person that was doing that. And it was a tech company. And I was not knowledgeable on the tech side. So I would have to bring in a sales engineer, and I would have to bring in other people, and eventually new business development people and salespeople. I'd have to bring them into the business and teach them how to sell our product, but also how to connect with the customers. And it's I'm not a teacher. I didn't know that I was a teacher. And at the time, I thought, how am I going to get all this information? Like, how am I going to train people to do what we do here, like I was trained, but in a slightly different way that feels more me? And so I came up with ways of training my team, and how to move people on the sales continuum from like a cold call to a meeting to a proposal to a close. I figured out a way to do that. But then to it was 3 years ago, like right now, I sold that business, and now I'm a business strategist and a business coach, and I help people grow their businesses. And so now I'm really in teaching mode again. How do I teach people how to increase their revenue? And these people aren't typically salespeople, so they don't even have any kind of sales training. And most of them will say, I don't even have a sales personality. Like, they think that a sales personality needs to be like, oh, loud and boisterous and chatty and charming. And they immediately think, I don't have that. I can't do these things. And so I felt like I needed to develop some kind of a framework that would make it really easy for people who don't think of themselves as salespeople to be able to understand the journey that you need to take in that conversation when you are trying to sell a product or a service. And the cool thing is that this method that I came up with, which is called ACED, ACED, is it kind of flips sales on its head, because it really taps into the strengths that I have as a person. And it's not just really a method, but it's how to naturally move through a conversation using skills that aren't traditionally known as sales skills, like emotional intelligence, psychology, and empathy and connection. And what's really cool is I teach this to men and women, but women are already wired for many of those things. They're already wired for connection and emotional awareness. And so now by giving them a structure to lean on, they don't have to default to things that are also sometimes considered feminine traits, which are over explaining, over delivering, and undercharging. But they can have a structure to lean on that brings out their positive, their strong feminine strengths, which is, like I said, connection and emotional awareness. So it is a formula that works particularly well for women, but it is also a formula that works for men because in today's day and age, buyers are super skeptical. They don't like the bro sales methods anymore. Men don't like the bro sales methods anymore. Buyers are super savvy, and emotional intelligence is now a skill that is taught to everybody. So I think that this framework works for women, but it also works for men because that's the world that we live in today. Is you have to have skills in emotional intelligence these days.
This is going to be so juicy because you're as a business strategist. Oh, I want to take it so many ways. This is going to be so hard to keep myself on track today. So
Focus.
So you had said, that as a business strategist, you advise on all the different things. But I imagine, really back a second, tell people on my end when I advise founders is usually if you don't master sales, you are dead in the water. Like it is the number one, it's the thing you have to do. You have to be selling all the time. So do you in your business find that you get a lot of founders that come to you for one thing and ends up being a sales thing, and then you have to go through that teaching versus someone coming to you and be like, I need a marketing strategy or whatever it is?
So most of the time, and you probably see this too, founders think they have one problem, but then you have to get to the root of what they think their problem is. And so I like to call it buyers are liars, and they're not lying intentionally. They're lying because they're telling themselves a story that they think is true, but it really is not true. And it's up to us through the process of asking questions, clarifying questions. It's up to us to get to the root of what their real problems are. This is sales. This is our job in sales, is to ask the type of questions that get to the root and to the core understanding of what the real problem is. And it might be a revenue problem. It might be some other bottleneck. It might be a mindset problem, but it's up to us to figure out what those problems are, because buyers, they don't usually fully understand what their problem is. And the beauty of ACE is it's not even just something that you can use in sales training or sales coaching. If you can understand, and I'll tell you what ACE stands for, is it stands for authority, connection, elicit emotion, and disarm. These are all the things that you need to do in order to take a buyer on a journey from pain to pleasure, take them on a transformational journey so that they can feel like your solution is the one that's going to help them with their problem. But this is also a technique that you can use in just having a conversation with somebody about their situation. And as somebody who provides consulting and coaching and strategy, I have to be able to do that, whether I'm selling somebody or even if I'm just working with somebody after they've already hired me.
And I think that's so important, the approaching it from, are we just having a conversation? We might be having a sales conversation, but it doesn't have to come off that way.
Right. So that is why I think this method is so timely and it works, right? Because it's the opposite of salesy. This is the framework that you want to use if you sell and you hate sales, or if you need to sell or you want to sell and you hate sales. Because what this conversation is a It's a get to know you conversation. It takes the ickiness out of a sales call and turns it into like coffee with a friend, because you learn how to listen. And so what I like to say is you try and listen for the woo. And it's not the traditional kind of woo that everyone thinks of when they hear the word woo, like spiritual. Woo is a window of opportunity, WOO. And we need to be keeping our ears open and listening for these nuggets of information that people are sharing with us about their pain, about their struggles. And they'll tell us these things. They'll share these things with us. But a person who's thinking traditional sales, who's thinking, I'm selling something, I need to close, I need them to, I need to talk about my features and my benefits and me, that person's going to miss all of the woo that their prospect or the person on the other end of the call is talking about, because they're so in their mind thinking about themselves. Oh, my program has 10 modules. Oh, my offer promises this, and this is how much my offer is, and this is what my experience is. They don't care about any of that at this point in the conversation. What they care about is, do I trust this person? Does this person have authority? Do I feel connection to this person? Is this person going to be able to help me? How do I feel? Is this person going to be able to help me with my problem? And the way that you can demonstrate all of those things to this person is by asking the types of questions that elicit the woo. And then we have to be listening for the woo and take that information and then find out more about it. And if we can do that, if we can leverage the woo, we can hear the woo, and we can use that as an opportunity for us to take them on a transformation from pain to pleasure, then we don't have to sell anything, because our prospect will come to the conclusion on their own that our service or our product or service is the answer that they're looking for. So it's not a salesy conversation. It is a clarifying conversation, like you're having coffee with a friend.
So going back to your method, the ACE method, and also these coffee conversations, within that process, how many touch points might you advise? Because I don't imagine, if you're having this amazing conversation where you're hearing the woo and you're answering their needs in the best possible way that reflects, maybe that's also not the time to try and close the deal. I don't know. I'm really bad myself.
Yeah. So I'm going to be a little bit risque here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Please.
Okay. So I kind of say sales is a little bit like sex. You don't want to try and go in too fast and close the deal. Like, you have to warm your prospect up. You want this to be about them. You want to take your time and go at it slow and understand about them before you immediately jump in with, here's all about me. Here's my testimonials. Here's all the benefits of my program. This is what you get. This is, oh, by the way, this is how much it costs. If you jump in too quickly with that, then it's going to fall flat on your face. And the person on the other end is going to have all of this resistance. You won't have the opportunity to have built a connection strong enough with them for them to feel comfortable with you. And they're going to start with the objections. I'm not ready. I need to check with my partner. This feels expensive. I'm going to wait. I want to get other quotes. All of the things, all the objections, all the sales resistance that a prospect would say comes as a result of trying to sell or trying to pitch way too soon. And that's what the D is in the formula or in the method, is disarming objections, disarming sales resistance. And if we go through the ACE method properly, by the end of the conversation, there isn't much sales resistance. There isn't a need for an objection, because we have tapped into their emotion. We have connected with them so much so that they see this is the answer that they have been looking for and they are ready to buy. So I don't have to sell.
And I feel like the authority in ACE also takes a fair amount of time. You got to build authority and then you got to connect. So I kind of wonder if like people usually want the sales process to be quick. And I feel like even if you're following the ACE method, it might be a longer period.
Yeah. So authority um, is really kind of cool because yes, I teach sales. That is, I'm a sales coach. I help people close deals. But what I really teach is systems for social selling and systems for growth. And we met on LinkedIn. That's how I know you. A lot of what I talk about is systems for social selling. And so the cool thing about authority is back in the day, like back in when 20 some years ago when I was learning sales, in order to build authority as a new person, it was very difficult because I didn't have a track record, which is one of the reasons why I needed a mentor, is so that I had somebody's track record to give me credibility. But I didn't have a track record. I didn't have any credibility. I didn't have money to invest in like billboard signs and marketing campaigns and direct, like I didn't have any authority. So for me to go in and have authority right out of the gates was very difficult. So then you sometimes learn, oh, well, you can build rapport with somebody. You can relate to things that you have in common with them, and that's how you can build rapport. But I personally find that building rapport at the beginning of a sales process can feel very icky because the person on the other side is expecting a salesperson to do that. Hey, how's the weather? Hey, how's your kid's baseball game? Hey, when's the last vacation you took? Like all of that to me is icky. It feels super salesy. And I don't find that to be ways to build authority. And so the cool thing that we have today that I didn't have back then is we have the ability to build authority through social media, through our content. This is a way for us to start to warm up the audience, to talk about, to provide value, to give insights, to talk about our experiences in a way that elevate our authority and elevate our status. So when we get to the call, it can be minutes or seconds where we can come in, say something that elevates our authority and elevates our status, and we can move straight into trying to connect with people through asking clarifying questions. So it doesn't take a lot of time. Despite what you said, despite what you might think, that's something we can start to do with our social media, with our content today.
I don't know if this is your zone of genius or you enjoy talking about it, but social selling is a newer term and it's a newer thing. And I kind of wonder when you are warming up your audience, should you be always selling? I do see a lot of people that maybe sales isn't their thing and there's a sales piece in every post. And I for me that turns me off.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I teach social selling. And so I like to use the 80-20 rule. Oh, there's my dog. Special guest. She's my assistant.
We have those around here.
That's Gracie. So yes, the 80-20 rule. 80% of your content should be about providing value, providing insights, sharing stories, sharing experience, building a brand, and 20% should be selling. So I know people who have hundreds of thousands of followers and they have a majority of the time provided value, provided insights, shared experiences, and then have never had a call to action that involved selling. And once they built this huge platform, they built this huge audience, when they decided hey, I want to try and sell something. I have a platform now. I'm going to try and sell something. They have very hard time converting because their audience isn't used to it. Their audience doesn't know what they actually sell. So now they're in a pickle because they have a huge audience, but the audience isn't warmed up to them selling anything. And so they can't really fill their courses and they can't sell their offers, and they're having a hard time growing revenue because they've never done it. Similarly, I know people who are selling way more than 20% of the time, and their audience gets sick of it. They're like, oh my God, this person's constantly selling an offer. Everything is about buy this, buy that, and it gets boring. And then all of a sudden, people start not following you anymore and they start muting you. So I think having the 80-20 rule is great. I also think you should have the 80-20 rule with your CTA. So 80% of the time, your CTA is about engaging with your audience, trying to initiate thoughtful conversations with your audience, giving away something for free. And then 20%, your CTA should be buy my stuff. So it's a careful balance.
I want to thank you for that one, because that is so important. And for anyone tuning in, go look up the 80-20 rule, because you can use it in so many places in your life. So going back to a previous comment you made, and I want to dig into it, we had talked about when people come to you for X, Y, and Z, it usually ends up being something else. And I feel like whenever you're looking at sales, there's also a lot of stuff buried in there. It reminds me of money. Like there's always the subconscious stuff buried in there. And when you're looking at that, how you might advise women to dig into that, to use that to their advantage, to flip the script with it, how you might, I'm sure you experience it regularly. So how you advise women?
So let me answer your question the way let me ask your question, and then I want to make sure that this is what you meant when you asked it.
Yeah, I was not very good there.
People make buying decisions based on emotion versus logic. And this is something that is kind of new for some people. They don't necessarily think that that's how sales works. So have you heard this before?
Yes.
Yeah. So people think they're making buying decisions logically, but they're actually making them emotionally. And we like to think that we're being logical, but the real buying decisions are happening in our subconscious mind based on what feels right to us. And then the conscious mind, it steps in to justify our decision with reasons. So our subconscious mind makes the call, which is usually triggered by an emotion, but then it passes to our conscious mind to come up with the logical reasons. So it feels like it's a rational decision, but it's actually our emotional mind that's leading the way. And 95% of our buying choices happen this way, completely subconsciously. But in sales, people think you have to target the rational mind. Oh, I have to be in my rational mind here. I'm selling. I need to explain to people why they need my product or my service or my offer in a rational way. And then they don't sell. And they wonder, why the heck isn't this working? I am being very rational here. I'm speaking to people. I am addressing their problems. I'm being very rational, but it's not working. And so when we can get better at connecting with our intuition and the part of us that buys then, that's based on feeling and experience, then we can make our offer or our product feel real and emotionally meaningful to our prospects. And one of the best ways to do this is by asking clarifying questions that spark emotions for our buyers and help our buyers connect with the value of what you're offering. So people think that they need to go at sales rationally, but you have to go at sales emotionally, which is why when you are taking people through this conversation, the eliciting emotion part is critical. You have to be able, the buyer or the prospect, whatever you want to call them, has to be able to feel some kind of way.
You more than answered my question. You more than answered it. And I have to imagine that that process is actually easier for women. I feel like we just naturally connect with each other more.
I mean, so at the time, 20 some years ago when I was doing this, at the time I didn't know that that's what I was doing. I was just being me. I'm naturally curious. In fact, I'll take a second here to talk about something that I did in my early 20s before I even got into sales, which was I took improv classes at Second City in Chicago, which is one of the, or I think it is, you froze for a second. Are you still there? Okay.
Was maybe I was just too still.
Okay. So I took some classes at Second City, which is, I think it's the largest improvisational and sketch comedy theater in the world. And I was taking some classes there just to get better with public speaking because I had a job where I needed to be able to present to Fortune 500 companies. And I was scared off my ass how I was going to be able to do that. And I was like, I need some help. And so I started taking these improv classes. And a year later, I was like super invested in improv. But the thing that I learned, the skill that I learned was all about active listening. It's all about getting out of my head and actually being aware of the situation around me and asking questions that was going to elevate the scene and be gifts that I could give to my scene partner to make this act that we're doing be funny and move forward. And if I'm selfish and I'm in my head and I'm thinking about me and I'm talking about me and I'm thinking about what am I going to say next, it completely kills the scene. And that combined with the sales training really set me up for having this foundation of being able to be curious and ask questions. And I think you're right. Like as a woman, having those skills and then having just my gifts and my differences as a woman in a sea of men really helped me stand out because I moved from completely male dominated industry of commercial real estate, completely male dominated industry of tech. Here I am again, the only woman doing this. And being able to connect with people and have them connect with their emotions of what it's going to be like to have their problem transformed and work with me at the same time worked in my benefit.
Yeah. Thank you for that, because that is also, I think that was super important for the listeners. They're going to get a lot out of that. I want to look at when it's not so comfortable, because obviously you're comfortable with it. There are probably a lot of people listening that are just, no matter what, they're not going to be comfortable with it. And offline, we'd had a quick conversation about scripts. And so I just kind of want to get your thoughts on that. And then actually, we had talked about strategy too, what a strategy looks like.
Yeah. Okay. So, I'll tackle strategy first. So a strategy is a plan. And when you're uncomfortable with sales, when you're inexperienced with sales, when you are a solopreneur, coach, consultant, advisor, and you're everything, you probably, unless you do what I do and teach sales, you probably just haven't ever been taught this skill. And it's up to you to now build your business. Having a strategy, AKA a plan, is really important, because just showing up and hoping and praying that it works, not going to work. A lot of people move into being self-employed because they have some kind of a skill or a talent, or they have experience. And they're like, I don't want to work for anybody anymore. I want to do this for myself. And because they're good at it, they started working, and maybe they actually got some business. They had some, people in their inner circle, referrals, friends hire them, and they actually got some business. And they're like, heck yeah, like this is working. I'm doing this. This is working. But that ends at some point. And now it's like, okay, it's up to me to go out and find this business on my own. And that's where you have to have a plan for how you're going to do it. So a strategy is a plan, and a script is a part of the plan or the strategy. And let me tell you, one of the biggest objections that I get in what I do is, I don't want a script. I don't want to sound like a robot. I don't want to use something that you wrote that sounds like you in my business. I sound so very different from you. And people hate the idea of a script, particularly coaches. Coaches really hate the idea of a script, because they will consider themselves to be healers, some of them. Very, wanting to go with the flow and have a natural, organic conversation with their prospect. I say, I love that for you, but also that's not a plan. It's not a strategy. And you, as a non-sales person, as a solopreneur, consultant, coach, advisor, you do not get hundreds of sales calls a day or a week like I did when I was a salesperson. You get 2. How many sales calls do solopreneurs actually get a week? Maybe a few, maybe 10 a month. Like, it's not that many. And you do not want to botch one when you get it, because you're practicing on your actual prospects. That's a horrible strategy, horrible plan. So now I will jump into why I love scripts so much, because I am teaching to use structure with a script without sounding like it's not you. So a script isn't a cage. It's like a trampoline. It's like training wheels. Okay. So the script helps you build confidence. The script teaches you the skill, and then you can make it your own, because once you learn it, then you start to trust yourself, and then you can ride without the script. You can riff easier. You can make it flow natural. It moves into the coffee conversation with a friend. But it's the structure of the script that gives you the freedom to do that. And it's not friction, it's freedom. And so I have to fight with people about why a script is such a critical piece of this process, is because you have to learn that first in order to get the freedom.
And I imagine that with a strategy and a script and all the things that come with that, you even mentioned it, the fear of being less authentic. And I know people hate that word. So less sincere, whatever the word we want to use. How do you advise women to step into their power and use those tools to still be themselves, but still get the job done?
Yeah. So true. If I give you a script and then you read the script like this, and you sound like a robot, and you're scrolling and your eyes are darting around, that's not going to work. Which is why I don't just give you a script. I will give you a script and then a lab to practice in. Every time I provide a script, I provide a lab. And the lab is where people role play. So we role play with peers, other people that are in the lab with us. This is like a work. This is if, and I offer one of my master classes is a master class plus a lab where we have the opportunity to role play with each other and me. And we practice on each other. So you don't have to practice on the 3 prospects that you actually do get. You don't want to practice on them. You want to practice on each other. And so if you don't practice and you try and use a script, then it's going to be like a robot, or it's going to be like a performance, and then you're doing it wrong. But when you practice with a script and you become comfortable with it and you learn it, it sinks into your muscle memory. That's when you can start to show up like a guide. That's when you start to show up on these calls without having to overcompensate because you're so uncomfortable with the script because you've never practiced it before. Now you've learned ACE, you understand the flow, you've practiced it, and now it flows natural. This is just a real talk, a real conversation with somebody across the camera or in person. Some people, are still doing meetings in person, and great, that's awesome. I work with all different kinds of service providers. And you have the chance to really connect with them and offer real help.
All right. We are coming up on time.
Okay.
I love to wrap this show up with 3 hacks. You have given out so much free information already, but your top 3 hacks for, I would even say, business strategy with a focus on sales.
Gosh, top 3 hacks with a business focus. Sorry, what was it? Top 3 hacks.
Top 3 hacks for women in business, solopreneurs, on strategy, maybe with a focus on sales. Like, you can go outside of sales because this whole conversation has been sales and you've given us so much. If you have something else outside of that, that's great too.
Yeah. So I think number 1 hack is visibility. If nobody knows who you are, how are they going to hire you? And that can be very uncomfortable for people. And you just have to take small steps and start small. So visibility would be number 1 hack. Number 2 hack, take care of you. If you do not have if you're not in a good mental space, then you'll never be able to implement systems that work for your business. You have to really take care of you and be grounded and take a systems approach to your own mental, physical, emotional health if you want to grow a business. Otherwise, all the systems, all the resources, all the templates, everything that I could provide to somebody, it's not going to work if you're not taking care of you and your mindset. It's not in a good space. And then number 3 would be, if you're avoiding something, that's the thing you need to focus on.
I don't think anyone has given, well, no one's given those 3 anyway, but no one has given that one. And that's so important. The thing that you're avoiding is the thing you need to do.
Hey.
Well, Melissa, it has been my absolute pleasure. Actually, let's rewind. Not even. For those people who need the sales support, and I imagine that is almost everybody, and who wants to get in on working with you to learn the process. I know you offer courses too. How can they find you? How can they connect and get to know you?
Yeah, well, I welcome you to connect with me in a few ways. Number 1, you can find me at melissaglick.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. It's my preferred platform. I am on LinkedIn almost every single day, building my community, engaging with my community, usually in the morning at about 8 a.m. Eastern time. So connect with me, follow me, comment on my posts, and I will reciprocate, because that's how I build relationships and I get to know people, is through doing that, which is social selling. And then you can also find me on Instagram as well. It's Melissa Glick _. So those are 3 places where you can find me. Instagram is sometimes a little bit more personal and behind the scenes. So I like to share my life and you can learn a little bit or a lot about me by hitting me up on all those platforms.
I love that. They can get the whole you.
The whole
I
me.
will put all 3 of those links in the show notes. Melissa, it has been my pleasure having you on today. Thank you so much for joining me, taking the time, the insights. I can't wait to share this with the world.
Yes, Raven, such a great conversation. Thank you for having me. I love it, and I can't wait to see it, and I can't wait to connect with some of your audience.
Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to today's episode. For all the juicy deets on this episode, be sure to check out our show notes or give us a holler on Instagram at Hacking the Patriarchy Podcast. And if you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support this podcast, don't be shy. Please share it with your friends. Sharing is caring after all. Lastly, if you'd like to lend your personal support, please take a moment to tell the world about it with a review on your favorite streaming platform. We'd be forever grateful. Tune in again soon to enjoy a brand new episode of the Hacking the Patriarchy podcast. And until next time, keep on hacking, my friends.